What does it tell you that Steve Kerr is back? What's the word that Steve Kerr used all year long? At the end of the year, we'll find out if we have alignment.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you think or what I think. They think they can bring in a big name. Who is Steve Kerr? And why would they be so convinced, yes, he is the right guy to coach this team, and now they needed to kind of convince him a little bit. Steve Kerr's back. And what does that mean to everybody, I think, is maybe kind of the question of the day. And I know that for a lot of people, you're excited about this. Some people are disappointed by it. I will just point out what I've been saying for the last month and a half, quite frankly, which is, and this is not about yay or boo or anything, I just never thought it made any sense. And the only way it would have made sense for someone else to coach the Warriors is this. And so here's how I'll answer. What does it tell you that Steve Kerr is back? Because when he comes on the show, and that'll probably be later this week, one of the first things, no doubt, that you and I are going to ask him is, what were y'all talking about?
What took you so long?
What the hell? Like, you only played at Augusta once or twice, right? Like, what were y'all talking about for all those other days? And then he'll do a Steve Kerr answer, and he won't really, like, bring us into the meeting,
right,
but he'll tell us what he can. But here's what I've sort of been able to gather, and here's my read on it. And I want to run this by you. And then we can go wherever we go with that conversation. It tells me, right or wrong, that the Warriors brass believes that they can be good next year. That's what it tells me. You're not going to hear me bring up championship. I already said what I just said on the crossover. I believe all of us need Warrior therapy. We have got to go to a therapist and undo this idea of we win championship or we suck. Year was awful. Woe is us. Like, I don't feel like that's where the Warriors are. And I feel like Steph tried to say that at the end of the year when he said we don't need to be so obsessed with championship. We need to be good. And there needs to be a plan. Like, let me ask you, Dibs, what's the word that Steve Kerr used all year long? At the end of the year, we'll find out if we have alignment.
Right.
So they must have found it. On what are they aligned?
Well, they're aligned in the fact that, Steph is still here and Draymond, and now Steve is still here, and the alignment is basically we're going to do what we can without being too reckless to try to go from this era, which is ending. It's a fading dynasty, as Steve has said. You go from where you are to what comes next. And will that be Steve Kerr coaching it? Probably not. It might be. He's allowed to. So I do think that the alignment right now is, all right, we have Steph, we have Draymond, we have Jimmy for now. We might have Al, we might have Kristaps, whatever we have. How do we get from here to there? And there is 2030. Steph will be gone, Draymond gone, Kerr gone, whatever it is. So I do think that the alignment is, all right, right now, it's not championship or bust, but it's how do we still be relevant? How do we be good? How do we not be the 10 seed in the play-in? How do we maybe get to be the 6 or the 7 seed and, get some playoff games in a series? That, to me, is the reality of where they are.
I mean, if Steve Kerr sat down in one of those meetings and Lacob and Dunleavy were like, so here's the deal. Steph is Steph. So extension? Sure, absolutely. We're never letting Steph go. But this Draymond character, we're going to shop. We're going to shop with that Draymond contract because we think that's movable and it's short term. So we're going to shop there. And oh, by the way, that lottery pick, come hell or high water, we're making that pick. Okay, Steve, do you feel like you're the right guy for the team? Is that alignment?
Probably.
See, I'd argue no.
I mean, it depends on.
I'd argue no. Like if in any way, shape, or form they gave signals that like we're not doing now anymore. We're starting the rebuild. I think Steve goes. I just think when I see this, it tells me it's much more likely that the Warriors bring in a big name.
Right.
That's what I think.
Honestly, that is part of the, quote, rebuild. Forget Draymond Green, but if you trade Jimmy for Giannis and you trade 3 or 4 first-round picks, well, there is no rebuild. You're going all in on Giannis as your centerpiece now and in the future, and if you trade this year's pick and then however many picks you want to trade going forward, then there is no rebuild. Your rebuild is Giannis. You're the future. Steph, you're here as long as you want. And we've got Giannis and we have no picks. And yeah, there's really no rebuild until we get to a spot where Steph is gone and we then trade Giannis and get picks back or whatever we do.
Or maybe there's never a rebuild. You know what I mean? That's why the whole
there almost always has to be.
Well,
and you can bring in Giannis and you can, try to say, all right, now we have Giannis and we're going to give him 5 years and whatever, $350 million or whatever that number would be.
I just mean I think we throw the word rebuild around a lot and teams aren't necessarily rebuilding even at times when we say they're rebuilding. They're recalibrating. There are changes every year. You know what I mean? I think people look at the Warriors and it's like, where's the big change? Well, it's like they brought in Jimmy Butler last year. Like they make changes. There's recalibration. But the whole idea of rebuild, to me, rebuild would be like what is nationally being suggested about the Giants right now. If Buster Posey were to actually, in a 3-week period, or let's call it 2 months, you got 2 months till the trade deadline. Like if he was able to unload Chapman, Adames, Devers, and Jung-Hoo.
Wow.
And not happening, by the way.
Right.
But
that's more than $500 million in contracts.
You were able to get back prospects and financial relief and blah, blah, blah. And Bryce Eldridge is starting every day over at first base. Yeah.
That's a rebuild, yes.
But everything else is just like, we're going to tighten this screw. We're going to unscrew. We're going to over here. And I think that's the Warriors' goal. Their goal is to always be like that. They don't ever want to tear it down. They don't ever want to be Utah and Washington. That's their goal. I don't know if it'll work. But anyway, that's what the whole thing said to me. It doesn't matter what you think or what I think. They think they can bring in a big name. They think that's what it says to me. Because who is Steve Kerr? And why would they be so convinced, yes, he is the right guy to coach this team. And now, because this was the way I read it, they needed to kind of convince him a little bit. We got to, yes, we want you to make some tweaks.
Right.
But we kind of got to convince you that you're the right guy to coach this team right now. Well, what would they say to him to make him say yes? Other than just Steph's still here. We knew that.
Right.
Steph's not going anywhere. So we knew that part already. What were the other parts? I believe they can't promise it. They can't put it in Sharpie, but they can tell him, here's the plan, and I think we can get somebody.
Right, and they already have somebody, and it's Jimmy Butler, and we don't know when he'll be able to come back. And so, I don't know, the fallback position would be, we still have Jimmy. So if we can't turn Jimmy into, I don't know, Giannis or Kawhi or whatever else, we still believe that we have enough. And Steve's always said that, like when we had Jimmy last year before Steph got hurt, they went on a great run. You won a series and you were a team that was probably good enough to maybe give Minnesota a scare, and then Steph got hurt. So I do think that they still have that belief. But yeah, you look at Giannis maybe being available, and Jimmy Butler's contract almost lines up perfectly with that. It's a couple million short, but you could trade Jimmy, an injured Jimmy Butler, and however many picks and bring in Giannis and give him a new deal, and he becomes now your new bridge piece for the future.
Yeah, we want to let you know why this is not just the billionth Giannis conversation for no good reason.
Right.
Shams, ESPN, Pat McAfee show today.
Sources tell me the Milwaukee Bucks are fully open for business on trades and offers around Giannis Antetokounmpo as we enter the NBA draft combine this week. We're 6 weeks away from the NBA draft itself. Bucks owner Jimmy Haslam said just last week that there will be a conclusion to this saga. Been a 12-month ordeal for all of us, but Jimmy Haslam said there will be a conclusion to this that will either result in him signing a long-term extension or a trade. But any conversation that the Bucks are going to have with Giannis Antetokounmpo, from my understanding, it's going to be a very simple one. Do you want to stay here long-term and commit long-term in June? The answer from all accounts is going to be no. And at that point, the question is going to be, where does Giannis want to go? Where does he want to play for and commit long-term? Because he's got just one guaranteed year left on his deal, especially in the NBA. That gives a player of this caliber a ton of leverage, a ton of sway on where he ends up. And there's going to be a bunch of teams: Miami, Golden State, the Lakers, the Timberwolves, the Cavaliers, a bunch of teams playing in the playoffs right now, teams that are out of it. And we'll see over the next 6 weeks, as Jimmy Haslam said, what happens with Giannis.
So Shams even calls out Golden State, but then he calls out, 14 other teams too.
Right.
Would Giannis want to play here? It's been a question for a while. Still don't know.
Yep. I mean,
still don't know.
No clue. And the idea of playing with Steph would be appetizing, but Steph is going to be 39.
Short term, yeah.
It's not like you're going to be here and play with Steph for 5 years. It might be 1 year, it might be 2 years, it might be a little bit more than that. So I don't know what Giannis really wants. Like, what makes him tick? Is it location? Is it winning? Is it being able to bring various other Antetokounmpos with you? Like, I'm sure that's all part of it.